Okay. Is anyone still here after all of that? Jeez, like, what was that, like half an hour of me trying to figure out what was wrong with my stream? I'm back. We're better than ever. Okay. Restarting the router was all that needed to be done. That was it. Okay, so Arizat, you're back. You're still here. Unbelievable. Wow. Okay. So, let's I think I need to like start up Skype or something. Arizat, are you on Skype right now? Yeah, please do. I'm doing the same. All right, so instead of the mobile stream, we are now updating. Uh-oh. All right, so while we're waiting on Arizat to, so I'll comment on this game really quick. All right, so we can, that's not the right one. Let's go here. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna watch this game and I'll comment on it, do some commentary. All right, so what can we say first of all about the imbalances? Oh, you're signed on. Okay. So I think if I call you, hey Wing, welcome to the stream.
Okay, is this working?
Yeah, I think it is, and I do believe everyone can hear you on the stream as well. I don't know if you have the chat up or if you have the stream up, but maybe if you're watching the video, you can hear your own voice here in a sec.
Yeah, I can.
Bum-ba-dum-ba-dum. All right. So what I had in mind for you today, just some basic in-game stuff. So, I didn't see too many end games in your games, but if you play against someone of your own level, you'll find that maybe you're up a pawn, or maybe you're you're able to promote a pawn and get king versus king and versus queen or rook. We're both quiet. Actually, I could probably turn him up. I didn't think about that.
Testing, testing, testing.
Okay, yeah, that's a little better. All right, I'm gonna get closer to my mic. Okay, so my studies, and let's go with here, beginner pawn study. All right, so actually, before we get into this, I need to invite you as a contributor. Can you sign on to Lichess? Or are you already here?
I just signed on.
Okay.
I don't know if I have to control or not.
So, I believe if you're a contributor, if I add you as a contributor to this, how do I add a contributor to a study? Member, add member. There's that. Perfect. Okay. So if you will, like, you should be able to like see what I'm doing and get into the study here. I'll just give you this link. How about that? In fact, everyone.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay, I wasn't sure if I had to hit control to talk or not. I couldn't remember what I had set it to.
Okay, it's not normally like that. But.
All right, so
you're on Lichess seeing this position, right? Not just on the stream.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So can you try? It's whose turn is it? It's white to move. Um. So if you were white, can you actually move a piece here? Like if you
Yep.
just wanted to move a piece, go ahead. Just trying to test the setup. Like, can you put
Okay.
the black king in
I
check?
moved it.
You moved it. Okay. So I wonder if there's like a sync setting.
Gotta be.
Contributor. Oh, there we go. I added you as a contributor. Okay, so go back to the first position and then actually move the bishop to put the king in check. Yeah, there you go. So now I'm actually seeing what you're doing, and we can play against each other from these positions in the study. So, all right. Um, so yeah, that's a good move. All right. So the goal of this is, just to learn how to promote pawns in different situations when you have advantages, and then also how to stop your opponent from promoting pawns when he doesn't have enough of an advantage to do so. So, um, so yeah, White's goal is obviously to make a queen and then checkmate. But let's roll back here because I don't want to assume too much. Do you know how to checkmate with the queen?
I've I've done a couple of the Lee chess things. A couple of the end games.
Okay.
I've done the king pawn, but I don't know how well it like I learned it.
Okay. Let's bump it up and down. I'm gonna add a new chapter here. Queen checkmate. Let's go not with the initial position. We want to clear the board, empty the board, and we'll go white to move. Put your queen here. Black's king here. White's king. I don't know. Here. Okay. Can you go down to chapter 16?
Hmm.
So I just want you to demonstrate this for me. So it's your move as white.
Okay.
And if you want me to tell you the general strategy so that you can follow it, I mean, feel free. If you feel like you know it, then just go ahead and do it. Otherwise, I can tell you the right way to go.
Doesn't look like it's letting me move.
Um, it says you're a contributor. Whose turn is it? Should be white to play. Orientation white. Analysis mode. Whose turn is it? Oh, it's black to move. I'm sorry. Okay, so black made a move. Go ahead and play as white now. Okay. Yeah. So my idea is to just stay as close as possible to the center, and your idea is to push me to the end of the board and checkmate me on one of the edges. So if you let me, I'll stay in the center.
Does it matter which side of the board though?
No, not at all. I mean, it helps if it's like one closer to your king, because
Yeah.
then it'll be fewer moves. So this distance from the queen to the king is kind of ideal. So you wanna like maintain that the whole time.
Right.
So if you move your queen somewhere, then I can move closer to your queen. So if I were you, I would move your king, uh,
Uh,
and then force me back, basically. Yeah. So the queen's got this. The king has this square. Now I'm forced to move back to one of these two squares. Okay. So now maintain that knight distance now with the queen. So always move a knight away from the king with your queen. Yeah. All right. So now I'm gonna go here, which makes things a little bit tricky because you don't have any more knight. Like you could put your queen down here, or you could like just move your king.
but it doesn't matter which one.
Um, no, I don't think so. For the purposes of this, so the point is that I have to move, right? I have to move somewhere. Yeah, and so now you could take away that square. Um,
And I also I don't want to make it so that it's a stalemate either.
yeah, once I get closer to the edge of the board, you have to worry about that. Yeah, good. So you took away that square from your king, and again, I'm having to move back. So that's perfect. I'll go here this time. So again, follow the knight distance. Oh no, you want the knight. Um, so
Hmm.
this square allows me to come back forward. So go back one and then try a different move.
Um, well, let me move it back.
If you just press the left arrow key on your, it'll
Oh,
go back one. There you go.
didn't know that.
Okay, so from queen e5, yeah. So I can go here, and then yeah, your queen is a good like.
See, I guess that's one thing I'm not sure about is when's a good time to move the king and when's a good time to move the queen?
So if it's my move, and we have this knight distance,
Yeah,
you know what I mean by knight distance, right?
right,
Yeah. So if we have this knight distance, then I'm forced to move, somewhere away. If it's your move, like you don't want to move the queen. So
right.
that's the idea. Just don't move the queen when there's a knight distance. So you can just basically move your king whenever we have this.
Is it your move?
No, I just moved king g6.
Hmm. Weird. Huh. Yeah, it wouldn't let me move it.
So king g6, you can't move a white piece right now.
I had to move it back to that. I can't move one now.
Hmm. Where? Okay, I can't really see what you're seeing. So in the move list over the top, you should be in the parentheses where it says king g6. Is the king g6 highlighted?
No.
Okay, click on that.
Ah. So probably from me hitting the arrow, it might have unsynced it.
Yeah, I don't know. So now you should be able to move a white piece now that you're on king
Yeah.
g6.
Hmm.
Okay, I see what's going on here. I think in the variations it doesn't sync our screens, so I'm going to promote this, and
Oh.
and then now I can see your king g4. Do you have king g4 highlighted now?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm going to move my king, but you notice I'm still a knight move away. So what does that tell you?
Move the king again.
Yeah, yeah. So move the king closer to my king.
Looks like I'm gonna have to click on it every time.
Oh, geez.
That's fine.
Okay. And then now I have to go here. Yeah. Okay.
Oh.
So
Okay.
now it's we're getting to the end, right, where you need to
Right.
just know the end. Um, once my king gets on the first rank, and then your king gets on the third rank, your queen just wants to be like one square next to mine, right?
Right.
So, um, your king's kind of ideal right now to push my king back, so your queen can actually move. Whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. That's a way to draw the game immediately. Okay, so you can put me in check somehow that will force my king back to the first rank. Oh right, right, I see that. Let me delete that move that I made. Okay, if you
Okay.
click on king g7, now you can make the right move.
Yep. All right. So I need to get it to move back.
Yeah, and in such a way that your king can still move forward. You don't want to block your king off. Well, that doesn't put me in check, but it does force me back. So
Oh,
that's
did you want me to put you in check?
no, that's fine. That's totally
Okay.
fine. What you just did there was fine. Okay, now so you're awfully close to stalemating me. Be careful. Yeah, so that's a draw.
Is it?
I don't have any moves.
Well, dagnabbit.
That's okay. Um, so again, with the king being on this one away from each other, the move I was looking for was either like
Right.
queen f7 or queen e8 because your king is covering these squares and your queen can cover this row, forcing my king back.
Ah, so obvious.
That's okay. Yeah, if you haven't practiced this before, it's fine.
Well, the funny thing is like when I'm doing like a lot of the puzzles,
Mhm.
as soon as like I'll sit there for 5 minutes and not be able to see what they want. And as soon as that I see it, it's obvious.
Yeah, yeah. But once you have experience, this stuff will just come easy. So king here, um, and remember the knight move. So you're fine with
Mhm.
the knight move. Good. And then I have to go here, and you should be able to checkmate me now. Yeah, perfect. Um, that would work if that would work if the queen was a rook even.
All
So
right.
if you're learning to checkmate with a rook, this pattern works nicely where the king is holding these squares and the rook's holding these. You could have played here or here.
Yeah, I didn't want to block the king.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
It probably didn't matter, but whatever.
So promotion one. Let's go back to the first chapter. Um, so I'm playing black here. Your goal is just to make a queen, and then you can do the same thing that you just did. All right.
Hmm.
So when you have another piece like a bishop or a knight, it's really easy because you don't have to worry about the opposition or anything like that. Like you can just push me back. So
But I just have to make sure I don't push you where you can't move.
yeah, make sure I always have a move after you do what you do. But um,
See, the problem is I have to sit and work out every single move because I don't know them.
take your time. It's okay. We're not in a rush. The so yeah, perfect. That's
And I
exactly what.
also want to protect my pawn from the
Yeah,
king.
that's
So
exactly what I wanted you to do. So the pawn is controlling these squares, the bishop is controlling these squares. I have to go back this way. So you need your king to help come up and push the pawn. So this is my only legal move.
and my bishop's probably still good there, right?
Yeah, I don't think you need to move him. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so what you just did there was key. Your king now controls the queening square. So d8 is the
Hmm.
queening square where you're going to get a queen. So now that your king controls that square, I can't do anything about it. I'm screwed. Yeah, you have to get
Which means you have to get away because as soon as it's a
yeah.
queen, it would basically be
I
a
can't just
checkmate.
right. I can't just stay where I am either. So even if I wanted to, I have to move away from that square. Good. Cool. So one move available. So now
So now,
just don't stalemate me.
right? Okay. No, can't do that.
Remember the whole knight move thing, right?
Hmm.
So the queen and king are already in the knight move. That means you should probably move a different piece or get into a different knight position because you want your king, my king, to be on the edge and your queen to be, kind of hampered. There, perfect. Okay. Um, bum. So I have to go. Yeah, I basically have to go to the edge, one of these two,
Hmm.
or the corner. I'll go this way, and you actually have a mate in one here, but I'll. There you go, perfect. Mate in one. GG. Okay.
Sweet.
Yeah.
It's nice when you have them handed to you.
Okay, so this is a little bit trickier because you don't have a bishop, and I'll tell you why. Um, we're moving on to the second chapter, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah. So, um, the main thing here is that the position of the kings really matter. Um, so like you need to have something called the opposition. Have you ever heard that term before?
Yeah, but I'm not sure what it is.
Okay. So the opposition means that like the kings are in a face-off, and whoever's move it is going to lose ground. So if the kings are like one square away from each other, like on the same file,
Hmm.
then like if it's black to move, and I think it's white to move here, see if you can move your king to d5.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah, try that. Go ahead and do that. All right. Yeah. So now it's my turn as black, and I'm forced to like give ground. If I go this way, then you have this move. If I go here, then you have this move. And if I go backwards, you can just gain the opposition again, right?
Yep.
So I'm screwed, right? Because you have the opposition. Because you moved here, and then I have to move away from the opposition. Then you're winning, basically. Okay. So the key to the winning the pawn in games when you have the extra pawn is to get the opposition in front of your pawn. Okay. If you don't get in front of your pawn, it's a draw, and we'll show that later. Okay. So I'm gonna move and see if you can remember what I showed you to do here. There you go. Yeah. So now I'm just gonna get in front of the pawn here. Good. So you got the opposition again.
And when do I start moving the pawn?
When you control the queenie square.
Oh, okay.
So you can do that this move actually. Queenie square is d8. There you go. Good. So now I'm forced to yeah, just to start to move away basically.
Do I start moving the pawn up?
Yeah. So now you can just march your pawn all the way up to d8, and there's nothing I can do to stop it because your king controls all these squares.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, I won't make you do the queen mate. You can practice that against the computer. Load that up against level 10 stockfish, okay? Play this against level 10 stockfish as many times as you like until it becomes like really fast. I don't know if you were there yesterday when I was in that Blitz bullet tournament.
Yeah.
There was an end game where I had king and rook versus another king with only like 5 seconds left to go, and that was I wasn't even sure I could pull that one off because the rook was the rook is a little bit more tricky to do than the queen, and yeah, so it's good to have those things really down pat for situations like that where your opponent's like, okay, I think it's a draw because you don't have enough time to checkmate me. But yeah, so yeah, practice that. Practice the king and queen. The rook you can learn later, but yeah, the king and queen is more important for a beginner.
Okay.
All right, so good. So you did that. So promotion 2. Um, so this is that situation. Like if these pawns on the b file were not there, um, this would be a draw because white is not in front of his pawn.
Right.
Okay, but the problem is actually that there is another pair of pawns, right? So black has to babysit this e pawn as it goes to the back rank, while you can go and win the b pawn and then promote it. Okay, so your plan is to just push the e pawn as far as you can go without stalemating me, and then go and win my b pawn after I'm stuck defending e8. Okay,
All right.
so it's your move, I believe. So what I'm trying to show here is that you can't control the queenie square, but you can win this pawn, and that'll be enough to win the game because you can just go here, in which case you will control the queenie square. So you need to push my king back this way so that you can go this way. Yes.
Huh.
So now's your chance. You can go to c6 and win the b6 pawn. Doesn't matter that I can take your b6 pawn because I can't get behind. There you go.
Oh,
Yeah,
and
so
you won't be
I
able to
take.
catch up.
Yeah, I won't be able to catch the square in
Right.
time. So yeah, you take.
And I'm in front of the pawn.
Right, and now go ahead and control the square, queenie square. Perfect. Yeah, good job. So that's a concept you have to learn. Is just to give up your outside pawn when your king can fight and win pawns over here while my king is busy defending. Then that's really important. Okay.
Yep.
All right. So chapter 4. So here we're backing up further, so you have to remember the plan. And I gave you the plan back in chapter 2, I believe. Yeah, at the beginning of chapter 2 is like a goal position that you want to reach. Like the initial position is something you want to get to, uh, with the fourth chapter. Okay, like, do you
Yeah.
remember that where the king was in front of the pawn?
Yep.
So let's try to do that. You go ahead and play white.
Like, how soon does it have to be in front?
As long as it's in front, it really doesn't matter. Um, well, and it's in front, and you have the opposition. Okay, yeah. So king e2 is right. There's something called. So this is a little bit more advanced because there's something called the distant opposition.
Hmm.
Oh, we just got a host or something. Hang on, let me pull up my notifications. Uh, so there's something called the distant opposition. Okay, so what you just did actually was take the distant opposition where your king and my king are on the same color square. Okay, if we're on the same file, it doesn't matter. We're just on the same color square. You just took the opposition. Okay. Oh,
Okay.
so Night of Frozen Lake just hosted me. Nice. Or rated actually. Good deal. Thanks a lot, Night of Frozen. Okay, so now it's your turn to. Oh, no, it's my turn to move as black. All right. So remember that the main goal is to move in front of your pawn. Um, and once you're how do I say this? Like once you're enough ahead of your pawn, then the opposition almost doesn't matter because you have the extra tempo with your pawn. Like you can move, you could like choose not to move your king. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So here you have yeah. So now you can take the opposition. Mm, okay. So now I have the opposition. You gotta be careful now. I don't think you drew it at this point, but that was not the right move.
Oh.
Because you want to move the king, you want to move the pawn in case you ever lose the opposition. All right. So let's actually back up a little bit. So with king c6, I stepped away, right? So what did I tell you could do when I step away?
Just move the king again.
Right. You could advance. So if we go back to king c6,
Uh huh.
instead of moving the pawn here, you could like step into the square that I left by moving my king off to the side.
How do I step into that one?
So my king moved here, right? So remember
Yeah.
when our kings are facing off like this, they're both looking at all three of these squares. So when I moved over here, I left this square. So that means you step in that
Oh,
one.
I see what you're saying. I thought you meant okay.
There we go. All right. So now I'm gonna go back here, trying to stop the pawn. Okay. So I'm taking the opposition. Shouldn't let me do that.
So how do I keep that from happening? Just
Um.
keep moving the king?
Well, at some point, like our kings are going to be so far down the board that it's not going to matter so much because you'll be able to move your pawn a bunch of times.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like what I would have done instead of d3 there was to just move the king back to take the opposition on d5. So instead of d3, I would have played king d5. Yeah. So let me promote that and delete this other variation. Yeah. So now again, I have to give ground because you've taken the opposition. So I'm going to go this way. Yeah. Perfect.
I don't want to keep going back and forth though,
Oh
right?
wait. So you took the opposition when you could have actually advanced. That's okay. Just take the opposition again, and we'll go back. Don't back up or anything.
Oh,
Okay. So we're repeating twice, but don't repeat three times. So
right.
um, remember, you can advance now because I've stepped off to the side. Um, well, what I mean by advance is moving your king up, but
Right.
that's possible here too. You haven't made a big problem. So now what you need to do, because I have the opposition. Remember, when I have the opposition, you can actually move your pawn, and then you take the opposition.
So I
So you just play d4 here to take the opposition.
okay.
Right. So now it's my move and I have to give ground. Um okay, no. Step in front of your pawn again. And remember when I say I'm giving ground, it's because you can advance your king. Remember your goal is to control this queenie square. There you go. And now you can take the opposition. Perfect. Yeah. So you win, just like the second one. So yeah, starting advancing your pawn. Perfect. Okay. Yeah, we don't need to continue. All right.
That's
So
a confusing one.
yeah. So let's actually go back because I understand your confusion here. I'm gonna delete this. Delete these moves.
I think the confusing part is the fact that it's the opposition's not just the king; it's also the pawn.
Yeah. Well, it's because if we're already in a face-off, whoever has to move their king is at a disadvantage, right? So if I have to move my king, which I do, right? I mean, I only have a king. Um, but if it's your turn and I have the opposition, then you still have you don't have to move your king, right? You have this option to move your pawn. So you want to save the pawn moves for when if I ever get the opposition. Um, so okay, so king e2. I'm gonna play something a little bit different. I'm gonna go here. Okay. Okay, so I have the opposition, right?
Hmm.
So perfect. That's what you're supposed to. Yeah. Good.
I think that was wrong, wasn't it?
Yeah. Well, it's not ideal. You haven't lost, or you haven't drawn, but so I've taken the opposition, but maybe it is a draw. So if I go here, you need to get in front of your pawn,
Hmm.
and then I can go here. Yeah, I think you have to step away, and then I can advance. You can't stay in front of your pawn. Yeah, I think you're actually you're drawn here. Go back.
Okay.
Um, so instead of moving the pawn, whenever my king is in front of your pawn, if
Yep.
if you
Just.
don't have the opposition, just take it. Like that's okay. So go back to king d7.
Hmm.
So you always take the opposition this way. There you go. All right. So I'm gonna step away, and now you can advance.
Advance the pawn.
No, with your king. I mean,
Okay,
yeah,
that's what I thought.
yeah. Well, no. Okay. Remember, you have the opposition. We're fighting over these three squares. Okay. So if I go to now, you're saying king c6. Yes, that's right. Okay. Let me delete the other move. Okay. So we're at king c6 now, and I'm gonna play king up. There you go. Okay. So here, I think you need to be a little bit careful because your king and pawn are too separated.
Yep.
Um, so you could actually just make two moves in a row to get the opposition back with the pawn. Because if I'm going back and forth with my king, two moves are going to cancel each other out. There you go. So I have the opposition, but then you can take it back with the pawn move. There you go. So now with the king over here, you can control the queenie square, and the pawn isn't too far away. Good. Okay. You feel a little bit more comfortable with that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Okay. Let's move on to the outside pass pawn. So this is really similar to the one where we had the thing where like the two pawns were locked on the left, and then there was the one pawn that you could distract me with.
Yep.
So here you can distract me with the A pawn, and then go and win the F and G pawns. Um, so the number one rule in end games is to use your king, right? Your king is your most powerful piece
Yep.
in the end game. So I would advise you to move your king towards the center to gain the opposition, and then I would lock up the F and G pawns somehow so that neither of them can move,
Right.
and then distract my king to the A pawn, and then after you push me as far as I can go away from my dark square pawns, sacrifice the A pawn so that you can go eat my my F and G pawns. Okay,
Okay. Yep.
so that's your plan. Go ahead. Good.
Uh, So I'm just going to let you take that, right?
Yep. Well, you have no choice. But yeah, you need to make the right plan so that once I do. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't defend my B pawn or G pawn or my F pawn, and you win. Easy game. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yep.
That make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I understand past pawns a little bit better than some of the other stuff.
Okay. All right. So this is like so chapter 6 is about making a passed pawn. Um, and it's kind of I mean the main rule. One of the world champions, I forget which, just made this rule. It said, you know, whenever you want to make a passed pawn, advance the one that's you know unopposed, right? So you have the B
Right.
pawn. I don't have a B pawn, so that's the one you need to advance first. Um, but remember to use your king, and you'll be set. And this is probably going to work out the same way, where you need to sacrifice the pawn in order to win my F pawn, and then your F pawn queens. So it may or may not. You may be able to just make a B pawn queen. We'll see. Go ahead. Oh, okay. Remember, the rule
Mm.
is to play the B pawn first. I don't.
Every time?
Well, not. I mean, you want to plan for this. You want to plan for B4 B5 rather than
I
A4
see. Yeah.
A5, because now
Yeah.
the A pawn can't support it any longer. So it's going to be really hard. Actually, my king
Plus,
can.
that I would be basically sacrificing that one and give me the A pawn would be a passed pawn
Um,
if you took it.
well, if I took with the pawn, yeah.
Yeah.
So there are ideas, but it would be a lot easier if you made a pass pawn first. That way. So the normal plan, I think, would be to go king c4. Let's try it your way, first of all. So I'll go here.
Not sure if I need to move my king or keep going with the pawn.
I think moving your
Because
king.
I
You,
think your king will be able to get to my pawn before I can defend it.
yeah. So the trouble now is that we both have pass pawns. You could have avoided that, because if while I'm eating your a pawn, you're free to eat this pawn, then you win. But now your king has to babysit this b pawn, my b pawn that's passed.
Right.
So let's go back. You had a slightly better option, but I don't know. It's getting rough actually, because your king actually is required, I think, to support the b pawn. But then if you move your king, I can go and eat your f pawn. So yeah, I think the a pawn move from a4 to a5 was kind of crippling, because it ties down your king too much. You didn't need to. When you played this way, you could have just gone king to c4, claiming the opposition, and then threatening to play b5 instead. And that creates a pass pawn for sure.
Right.
And without giving me a pass pawn is the main point. So let's go back to king c6, and we'll delete a5. And then go ahead and take the opposition here. Yep.
Hmm.
There you go. Um, so I'll simplify it a little bit. So when your king doesn't get in front of the pawn, you can't force it to the end of the board. Um, but what you can do is distract my king long enough to win, because you have another pawn, right?
Mm-hmm. Can't move this pawn, can I?
Yeah, you can play b7. That's fine.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see that one.
That's okay. That's kind of what you want. Like the whole goal is to get my king farther away from my own pawn. So, and now that I'm as far as possible, basically, like you can't push me away any further. Yeah, perfect. So I eat your pawn, and you get mine, and you make a queen.
Okay. Timing is important on that one.
Yeah, that's all in games. Yeah, good. You got the opposition. There's no way I'm getting to c8 or f8.
Oh, I think I'm supposed to move the king on that one, the last one, instead of pawn.
No, it's okay. No, you're
Really?
doing fine. You just need to move the king out just one more, so that you're still controlling c8 or f8, and you'll be fine. Yeah, just march your pawn all the
Okay.
way up. Good. Cool. All right. Well, it's almost 5 o'clock. I have about another half hour. Um, so seven. So chapter 7. Okay. So this one, the one that you thought was tricky, number 4. This is like a continuation of that, where it's a little bit even trickier. And I wanted to talk about something distant opposition where you're not on the same file.
Mm-hmm.
So remember, opposition, when you're on the same file, it's just one square away. When you're not on the same file, it's just on the same color. Okay.
Yep.
So when you're not on the same file, it's trickier because there's this box, right, where the kings make this box.
Yep.
So right now, the kings are on the same color, but the box doesn't all have the same color. Okay. Um. So to take the opposition when you're how do I say this? To take this opposition when you're not on the same file, you have to move it so that the box has all 4 corners of the same color. Um, so the king is on a dark square. That means that all of the colors of the square have to be dark, right? So if you were to move your white king somewhere to take the opposition, there you go, perfect, right? So that all 4 corners now are dark squares.
Yep.
So now you've taken the opposition. There's nothing I can do to make all 4 corners dark squares again. Like no matter what I move, like 2 of the corners are going to be light. Okay. Um. So I'm going to go toward your pawn just because I guess that makes sense. And then you can do the same thing with the dark squares. Good. And again, moving towards your pawn, and now you can take the opposition. Like the simple opposition. No, that allowed me to take the opposition.
Yeah.
Remember, 1 square away.
Right.
There you go. There you go. Okay, so now remember I have to give ground, right? So you advance with your king. Yep. Okay, and then so this is sort of like taking the distant opposition, right? Because there's all 4 corners or whatever. But it doesn't matter. Just go ahead and play your king in front of your pawn like you normally want to. Yeah, and then I'm going to take the opposition just because, you know. Yeah, there you go. Perfect. So now you have the opposition, right? Because you have the pawn move. I'm going to give ground, and then you can just win like you've always done. You should be able to do this really quickly by now. Um, ba-dum, ba-dum. Good. Beautiful. Okay, let's move on. Number 8. Okay, so this is like a simplified version of a really famous study where you make a queen faster than your opponent. It doesn't look like that white has much of an advantage here, other than the fact that his pawns are further along the board than black's. Um, but there is one winning move here that works out really nicely for white.
Hmm.
Ah, nice, nicely done. Yeah. So if I take your pawn, right? What are you
Yep.
gonna do?
Just advance my pawn.
Yeah, your a pawn, right? Yeah, I'm just gonna
Yep.
make a queen in 3 moves, where it takes me like 5. Um, and then if I advance, like say if I go here,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that works too. Good, excellent. So yeah, that's So like I said, this is a simplified version of the breakthrough. Okay, so now breakthrough 2. This is the more complex version where it's like 2 moves instead of 1. Um, if you don't see this soon enough, I'll just give it to you, because it's pretty tricky, even if you have seen the first one. But go ahead and try. Sorry, Charlie. Try it again. So it's symmetrical. So that should tell you that a6 would work out the same way as c6. So there's actually only one other move. There you go. Okay. So now with this move, you're you know threatening to create 2 different queens from 2 different areas, right? So I have to take it.
Yep.
I can't just push or anything. So if I take this way, this looks awfully similar to the first breakthrough, except black has an extra pawn. No, that doesn't work, because I can just take here and
Oh, and then we just block each other.
remember the first position. What did you do in this position where I didn't have the pawn on b6?
Didn't have the pawn. I'm not sure what you mean.
You remember? Okay, when this pawn wasn't here, you had an easy win, right? It's the same exact idea.
I'm losing it.
Let's look back at the first position. Notice how they're similar. Like, go back to chapter 8 and look at it. What did you play here in chapter 8?
Hang on. Okay, so I ended up doing c6.
Yeah. Yeah, so c6 distracts my b pawn, right? So in chapter 9, after a takes b6, let's not go c takes b6.
Wait, where are we at?
So back in chapter 9,
Mhm.
after a takes b6, if you click on a
Okay.
takes b6, it's white to move. Perfect. Yeah. And no matter what I do, if I take your c pawn, your a pawn queens. If I take your a pawn, your c pawn queens by taking on b7. Right?
Right.
So if I go here, a6. Yeah, and you're queening way before
Right.
I am in 3 moves instead of 5. So yeah, that's the way to break through. So we'll go back all the way to the beginning. Just remember, if you ever had this structure against an opponent, the way to continue is b6. Okay? This
It's
is a
basically like a bowling pin setup.
yeah, sort of.
Make a triangle.
Right. And it works out just because you can distract one of the pawns. Like basically what you're doing, there's two pawns that are stopping your A pawn
It's
from
kind of a it's
queening.
kind of a pawn fork, really.
Yeah, but it works out as a fork because black has to take. So by
Right.
taking one direction or the other, you're allowing one of my pawns to go forward. So let's look at it the other way. If I was to take this way, remember that frees your C pawn basically. So you need to move the other one to distract the last pawn in front of your C pawn. There you go, right? So then B takes, and then you can queen your C pawn. So yeah, so what B6 does is opens up one of your pawns to advance, and then you distract the B pawn, which is the one controlling the square directly in front. So it works out really well. Good job.
Stuff's not really obvious.
I know, I know, but that's one of those end game
It
things.
seems like it. It seems like it should be obvious.
Oh no, no. But because White's weakness from the initial position, I mean, it looks like dead even material. White's drawn, right, but White has one
But
major
whoever has
weak. What?
whoever has the move has the advantage.
Um, Not necessarily. No, I don't believe so. Because if it were Black to move and he played B6, um, you could take, and uh, yeah, I think Black draws if it's Black to move. Because if Black gets in B6, then White can't make a passer. So it would be a draw if it was Black to move.
That's weird.
Yeah, so black can't win because, and it's only because the white pawns are so
It's
much
so much
closer.
further.
Yeah, yeah. So it's the only difference between the white and black position is the space advantage.
Right.
And in the end game, that just means that your pawns are closer to queening. So in the middle game, it means that your pieces have all this room to maneuver, and he doesn't. Okay, so chapter 10.
So ranks are important, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Moving pawns in the end game is a big deal. That's the whole point of the end game is to get a pawn up to the last rank. So any progress you can make towards that, even
So
before you have a pass pawn.
if you're even material, but you're up more ranks, you have the advantage.
For sure, for sure. All of the things being equal, if the kings are equally placed and the pawns are material even, yeah. So it's one of those like really small advantages, but you can still convert it. Okay, so forcing the draw here. Number 10. All right, so you're white and you're pawn down. But guess what? You haven't lost because black didn't get in front of his pawn. So here I want to teach you how to force a draw when black doesn't know what to do. Now that you know what to do, right, when you have a pawn, you won't get in this situation. But if your opponent gets in this situation, I want you to know how to make a draw here.
Right.
And the key concept is, of course, the opposition. But there's a problem with black having an extra pawn, right? His king can't take his own pawn, right? Like he can't go on top of his pawn to get the opposition. So whenever possible, white should move his king one square away from the pawn. Does that make sense? Like your king should your goal is to take the opposition of the pawn, not the king.
Right.
Because that means that the king can't take the opposition back from you. So let's just try to play that way. So king d3 is your first move. Good. So I can advance my pawn. I can try to move my king. If I move my king, you probably just take it, or just I'll just push my pawn. There's nothing really much else to do. So again, if you can't take the opposition, right? You can't go king a3 to take the opposition, right? Because the pawn controls it.
Right.
Then you go you take the opposition of the pawn instead. So bring your king back, just directly back one square. Good. Okay. So now I'm going to move up to king e4. And here, remember, you would rather have the opposition against the king. But if you can't have the opposition against the king, you take it against the pawn. But here you can actually have it against the king. So do that first. Yeah. That's the deal. Cool. So now, again, I can't really... Moving my king would either draw instantly or just make things worse for myself. So I have to advance my pawn. And what do you do here? Yes, perfect. So I'm gonna play this move to try to trick you. So there's two options. You want to either take one of the two oppositions. You should be able to take one of them.
Hmm.
And actually, the more I look at it, the more I realize that it doesn't actually matter what you do here.
Yeah.
I thought it was tricky, but it's not. You could do anything you want here. So, but King D2, I think, is the most principled because it actually takes the opposition.
Yeah, that's what I thought it
Yeah,
was.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like,
You just play King D2, and yeah. If you were to play King E1 or King C1, I could take the opposition, but then you could just like step in front of my pawn, just like I taught you. So now I can't move my pawn. I just have to go like this, and you can't take the opposition. So what do? There you go. You go here. Good. And now here finally is where you can finally concede the opposition, but that's because if black takes the opposition from your next move, then the game's over. Good. Yeah, so now I either have to let you take my pawn or stalemate you. No other choice.
huh?
Game over. Good
Well,
job.
the thing that helps that one is I don't want your pawn to become a queen.
Well, sure, yeah.
So I
That's
have to get in the way.
yeah, that's ideal. Yeah. So there you have no choice but to give up the opposition by going king d1. Yeah, there's no king d0, right?
Right.
So
There should be.
yeah, that'd be funny. But but yeah, king d3 is the only way to save my pawn, and I stalemate you. Okay. So
Why don't they make chess like on computer games where if you go off the board, you'll
asteroids.
appear at the top. Like a
That's funny.
Pac-Man.
Probably because move one, I would go like queen takes king and just
You
win.
just flanked them.
Yeah, just go right around the edge. Okay, so chapter 11 is a little bit. Okay, so here it's white to move, and black has the opposition, and black is in front of his pawn. But guess what? It's still a draw because an H pawn and an A pawn is not enough.
Oh, right, because they have less moves than a pawn, like say in the middle.
Yeah, yeah. So the king can't step to either side, right? Like remember when I like if it's my move here and I go to the king b2, I've given up the square, you know, the one to the left, right? But there is no square to the left, so I haven't actually given up anything by going to the right. Does that make sense? Like when we have the
Yep.
opposition out here and I go this way, you can come in here, but here there's no there's no move off the board that you can take.
Right.
So the H pawn and the A pawn are completely drawn, no matter what. Ahead of the pawn, behind the pawn, opposition or not, it doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm gonna make a move. Actually, no, it's your turn. Yeah, you should. Go
Well,
ahead
that's the move I would make.
yeah, yeah. Go ahead and play king b2. That's fine. Yeah, so king b2, and then I play king b4. Yeah, and your goal is basically just to go back and forth until you have to go backwards, and then you just keep going back and forth between the A and B files. Yeah, so there's nothing I can do except to try to take away the B2 square, and then you have to go backwards, but it doesn't matter as long as you stay on the A or B file.
Hmm.
There's literally nothing I can do. I either have to give up my pawn or stalemate you. It's just nothing. Same story. King A1.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I either stalemate you or give up your pawn. There's nothing. It came over. All right.
So is it a legitimate strategy to, if you're in that position, to get over to one of the sides of the board?
To get over to with your king.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like if we're in this,
I mean, obviously, unless there's like a passed pawn I have to worry about, but if it's an A or an H pawn, then
right, yeah. If the white king were somewhere else, then yeah, black would be winning because he can't catch the A pawn.
right.
Right, but if the white king is in front of the pawn trying to stop it, then yeah, it's a draw. So yeah, you definitely want to be active with your king, and that means fighting for whatever's useful on the board, which is this passed pawn.
Now, would you be able to force a draw if instead of an A pawn, it was a C pawn?
The C pawn, well, it only depends on the enemy king position. So if the king is in front of the pawn, then it's a loss, and if they didn't get in front of their pawn, then it's a draw.
Okay.
So just like we talked about with with chapter 10, that was a D pawn, right? It's no different than a C or E or F pawn.
Right.
So the concept is still the same. Forcing the draw when it's not an A or H pawn is just a little bit more tricky than doing it when it's an A or an H pawn. Okay. And it's available in a lot more situations. So like we showed with chapter 11, even if the king is in front, it doesn't matter because the opposition doesn't matter when there are not three squares to fight over.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So here we go. This should be fun. You have an extra pawn. I want you to beat me.
Hmm.
Yeah, good. Remember the number one rule of Endgames? Your king is your best piece. So I'm going to move my king first. You didn't really have that option because
No, I didn't.
you would have gone sideways. But now go ahead and get your king up in the center.
Should I move it 2 or 1?
If you want to move your d pawn,
Yeah.
that shouldn't matter. Yeah, that works just fine. Okay.
Now, am I babysitting the F pawn for now?
You would need to, and yeah. Um, okay, so you just gave me the pawn back.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have done that. Let's
I
go back.
was I was looking at the
Yeah. Hang
stupid.
on. Okay, e6.
I hate that.
You probably take my pawn. That's the only move I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then I have to capture with my king, and then you can advance.
See, this is what happens in my games when I'm concentrating on one thing and I
Mm-hmm.
miss all kinds of other things.
Sure. Yeah, you gotta pay attention to what your opponent's trying to do. Um, there you go. Hmm.
No, that's wrong.
Yeah. Well, no, actually, you're still fine. Actually, it's okay because if I take it, you take my pawn.
Okay.
Um,
It just seems stupid to me.
it's
It just doesn't seem right.
it's okay because see now like we're in this sideways position where if we were just further down the board, you would be able to queen and win. So so I'm threatening to come here, right, to get in front of the
Mhm.
pawn. Good. Although actually, if I go back here, yeah, it's actually not so good. You should probably come back because you don't want me. Yeah, there you go.
Right.
Okay, so actually, there you go. Good. And then I can get in front of your pawn, but guess what? You can do what? Take the opposition. Perfect. Excellent. Very well played. Yeah, good game.
All right. This is gonna melt my brain. It's
You
been
want
a
to
long time since I've been in school.
try? That's all right. You're learning that last bit with moving the king up in all of these positions, right? So
Yeah, that's helping.
it yeah it a big deal. Okay, so a little bit more complex.
People have to be laughing their ass off right now.
Oh, it's okay. Everyone was a beginner when they started. It's okay. For real. I mean, we were all
I don't
different.
mind.
We might have been different ages when we started, but we were all beginners. I don't know. Some people are they started so young they don't remember learning this stuff, which is crazy to
Yeah.
me. I certainly remember, even if it was 30 years ago. I do remember learning all of this. Not 30, 20 years ago. All right, your turn. Chapter 13.
Nah. Bankrupt. All right.
If you're getting tired, we can
No.
save the last chapters. Okay.
Although you've got like 8 minutes left, something like that.
Yeah, just a few more minutes.
Okay.
I mean, I have some leeway after 5:30, but I'd
All
rather.
right. So I have 4 pawns.
Mhm.
What do you think is the best?
Um, so
Do I still want to get my king towards the center?
sure, yeah, that's the number one rule. But last time when you did it, you moved your king towards the center, but you also blocked your other pawns from advancing. Like you put
Hmm.
your king in front of one of your pawns that you wanted to go forward.
Right.
Um, I would have moved my king forward, but then like next to my pawn so that it could
Right.
support.
Not. It doesn't necessarily have to be right in the center.
Yeah, yeah. Like maybe telling you to put your king in the center was kind of confusing. Like you want your king to be in a useful place, and and here that's either behind or next to your potentially passed pawn. And right now your potentially passed pawn is D. So you want your king to be like supporting it from the rear or the side, like if the
Right.
pawn was up here. So like getting your kings up and then starting to move your potentially passed pawn is a good plan to start with. Yeah, just don't block your pawns as a general rule.
Unless you go for opposition.
Right, right. If it's just a pawn and a king left, then yeah, you have to get in front of your king for the opposition. Yeah.
Right.
Good. So you've got the opposition. I don't want to give ground, so I'm going to move my pawn. Whoa. I think I get a queen now.
Oh,
Careful.
thought we were just gonna trade.
No. I'm threatening to take, right? Yeah, let's go back. So you played d4, I played b5. Okay, now it's your move.
So I have to take it.
I believe, or you could play b3 to defend it.
Yeah.
There you go.
This is a lot trickier.
Yeah, it's more. There's more going on, right? Because there's more pawns.
Because I was just so intent on like blocking. It's the worst. All right.
So if you remember, your goal is to push the potentially passed pawn, which is your d pawn. And in order to put your pawn on d5, like because I have two attackers on the d5 square, you need two defenders. Right now, your king would be the only defender of the d5 square. So getting a pawn to c4 is your best bet, and you could actually do that this move. Yeah, and I can try to trade it off, but then you would, yeah, and you're still there.
Right.
Okay, so now you have your goal move in mind. You can actually go ahead and do that. No, that's not the goal move.
My what?
Remember, the goal move was to play c5. Sorry, d5. The rule is to move the pawn first, which is passed, right? So the d pawn.
Oh, because you're gonna have to move your king. Duh.
Yeah, or I could
I'm
trade.
looking at it. I'm like, oh well, your pawn's gonna take it, and like, oh no, it
Yeah,
can't.
but it's okay because your pawn can take back. There you go.
Ah, so stupid.
It's okay. So I'm gonna do that rule where I can take the opposition from your pawn. But it shouldn't matter actually. Remember, like because there's something else going on in this position. So if the a pawns were not there, this would be a draw.
Okay.
You should be careful here, actually, because your king
Mm-hmm.
is kind of on the wrong side. So, like, you can toy with me as long as your pawn is on the 6th rank. As soon as you push to the 7th rank, you better be ready to eat my a pawn. Does that make sense? Like, you're not ready to go over and eat my a pawn
Right.
quickly, so you need to go. You need to move your king. You're watching a chess movie, Fonza. Nice. Fonza's in the chat talking about his movies. All right. So again,
See, I want to get you to go the other way.
Electronic Jones in the chat too. No, I mean that's not possible. Well, it kind of is, but not really. If you had another piece, you could do it. But it's not that big of a deal. As long as I have to spend a tempo eating your pawn and not coming back, you're safe.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I can go here. I think it's okay. Right. So now I'm taking your pawn, and guess what you can do? Oh no, no, you have to take the opposition sideways. Because now I'm going back, and as soon as I get back there, it's a draw.
So I don't have time to do that.
Well, no, it's just that you didn't take away all the squares. You need to take all 3 of these squares away from me. No, take the opposition, but sideways.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well, no, yes. That's the corner opposition. It's not as strong because I can still go. I can still go and save the a pawn.
I'm stupid.
So there's one move here that wins. Oh, sorry. So I take here, and then you do what?
Wait, where are we?
So you have a move. There you go. Yeah. So now I can't get around your king if you stop me.
Jeez.
So again, no. I'm.
Oh,
You
I
got
still need one more, don't I?
You have to stop me. Yeah, you
I
have
gotta.
to stop me from
Yeah.
getting to the last rank. There you
I
go.
gotta control that.
Mm-hmm. So let me promote that and delete this line. Okay, good. So now if I try to go around the backside, I'm not fast enough, and you'll see that if you try to push the pawn. Good. Yeah. Okay, so let's back up a little bit and make sure you get what just happened there. So remember that when you play King E6, it's definitely not good enough actually to sack the pawn and then try to run over to the a pawn, because my king would be just as fast as yours if we both start on the d files, right? So
Mm-hmm.
and it became a critical moment, so I said something like I didn't want you to play d7 here. Sorry, I'm on the 13th move, by the way. I click on King E6. So King E6 was a little bit of an inaccuracy. You lost some time there. What you should have done instead of playing King E6 was just to start running over here. Like if you click on King D8 and then play from here,
Right,
given what you
King
already
D.
know, click on 12
Okay,
King D8. I'll just delete everything after it. Yeah.
I got it.
All right, so go ahead and play from here. No. Remember, King A6 is wrong because you're trying to get to the other side of the pawn.
Oh, right.
Yeah, good. So Fonzo, the mysterious voice is Arizot. You probably recognize that name from the chat in the past. So Arizot, I'm giving him a lesson for being the #1 subscriber. And what's the key move here? There's only one move. Nope, that's not it.
It's just such a habit.
Just remember with the king,
Yeah.
the
Yep.
important. There you go. And then perfect.
I got it.
Okay, good deal. And then now you just need to march your pawn, and you're good to go. Yeah. All right. So let's try the next one. This is actually really complex.
Does this ever happen?
On on 14.
Yeah.
No, it's an exercise, but it's a useful one.
That'd be amazing.
Now, like if you have a friend or someone you can practice against, I would recommend setting up chapter 15 against them, and then using what you've learned against me. You should be able to beat about any beginner who hasn't studied before. Um, but yeah, this game called King and Pawns, where it's just 8 pawns and a king, is really fascinating. I actually enjoy playing this against strong players because they tend to even teach me things about pawn structure that I didn't really even consider before. Um, it's not as simple as it looks.
No.
And
Well,
there's
nothing in chess is.
right, right. But hopefully now you're comfortable promoting past pawns and checkmating with the queen and all that good stuff. So if you ever get to that point, and you should be able to get there at some point, you'll be prepared.
I
And
just have to work on it.
yeah, and mostly it's because as a beginner you're playing online against people who've been playing a long time or studying quite a bit when they're playing. So it's really useful to lose actually against such people because you can look at those games and understand like, oh
Well,
wow.
the way I tend to learn things, it's like I can't like it wouldn't do me any good to play people online right now because I wouldn't be learning anything.
Mm,
I might learn a couple things, like there's a couple moves I've learned, but for the most part I would just be moving pieces, not really having like not seeing the big picture, like what I'm trying to do.
right.
And it would I would just keep doing that over and over. I need someone to like show me some basics, and then I need to practically apply those things until I just know them.
Yeah.
And then I can go from there and I start learning things.
So you remember in the first 10 moves, right? What I tell people all the time in stream, like what to do is, you move your pieces off the back rank, your minor pieces off the back rank, you castle, you move your queen, move a few pawns. That's the first 10 moves, easy.
Yeah, get your back rank active.
Right, right. And ideally you want to put your minor pieces on good squares, and that depends on what your opponent is doing. So, um that's where this whole thing like planning comes from. So, you'll get there. So play the opening well, and then get to the middle game, and then find things to attack, and then just attack. Like that's the idea. Um, and if you have the initiative, I mean that's half the battle. Like right, get them reacting to your moves instead of making their own plans.
Yeah, that's the hard part, is getting it.
Hmm. Yeah, because a lot of times, I guess in chess, your opponent will make a move, and you're like, oh my god, he's threatening something. I should defend. But before you do that, make sure you don't have a better attack of your own, right? So
Right. The hard thing for me is knowing when a sacrifice is the best. Like I have a hard time with knowing what the best play is. I can do some plays that like they work, but
yeah.
they're not the best play.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be worried about the best play. I mean, even I can't find the best moves. So, but yeah, as long as you have a goal in mind, right? You reach a position, your pieces are active, and then you have a goal. Okay, I want to win this weak c pawn in my opponent's position. Well, then play all of your moves from the next 3 or 4 moves toward that goal, right? Keep attacking
Hmm.
that pawn. Stop it from moving. Do different things. Like just make a goal and then try to move your pieces toward that goal. It doesn't matter what the goal is. If it's not the best goal, I mean that still puts you above a lot of players who just oh, I can attack his pawn. Maybe he'll move it, but
Or
whatever.
instead of just randomly moving things.
Yeah, yeah. If you're just trying to make random threats, a lot of people on Blitz, that's all they do. They just make random threats.
I try to do things, like specific things I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but a lot of times I find myself having to react to what they're doing to me. So it
Yeah.
makes it really hard to mount an attack.
Well, yeah, and then there's even deciding like whether or not you should react, right? Or
Hmm.
or just make your own attack. So yeah, that's for me. That's the fun in chess, really. But yeah, it'll come to you, and then just always keep in mind what is my opponent trying to do, right? Um,
Yeah.
so when he moves his pawn forward, look at what the pawn can take, right? So that's
Well,
sort.
plus there's the discoveries. A lot of times I'll miss those. Like, oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah. And that's where puzzles come in. Like the easier
Hmm.
puzzles, like if you play rated puzzles on Lichess enough, you'll get the easier ones.
Yeah,
And
I find I said this yesterday. I tend to do better with the puzzles when they involve the knights. For some reason, I do well with I solve those pretty well.
that's cool. That's good to know about yourself. You know, you maybe want to try to avoid trading your knights whenever
Yeah,
possible. At least in the beginning. Later, you want to be able to give up pieces to gain advantages. So, all right, man. Well, I need to sign off probably, but it was good talking with you.
cool.
And
Thanks for doing this.
yeah, no problem. So now you know more about end games than you did.
Yeah,
So okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. I'll hang up, and we'll see you guys next week. So I'm live again on Monday, 2:30 Eastern.
take it easy.
Bye. All right, this is Chris signing off. I'll see you guys next time.